I grew up with my dad riding motorcycles, and my grandfather rode motorcycles. And so my dad, we used to go for long rides. We'd ride. My grandparents moved out to Arizona when I was young, and so my dad and I would ride from California to Arizona. So that I have a lot of memories of that. And then when I was about 16, my dad said, "You got to learn how to ride a motorcycle." So he threw me on. And I remember dropping his motorcycle many times in a parking lot trying to do slow moving turns and that sort of thing. And then when I was in Australia shooting Elvis, I met a guy named Cohen who owned this cafe. That was my favorite cafe out there. And he fixed up old Harleys. And so we would go riding together. And so that was my first time getting on an old bike. And then when I spoke to Jeff for the first time, then I just immediately just doubled down and started riding all the time. There's many mysteries around Benny, and there's many things that I've sort of filled in for myself, but essentially Benny's a young guy who has fallen out with his family, and his father passed away, and I believe he had some sort of trauma in his past that's led to him becoming a sort of lone wolf. But yet there's this part of humanity that craves togetherness, you know? And so within that lone wolf attitude, he ended up finding the Vandals and ended up getting a sort of father figure or a big brother figure with Johnny, and the camaraderie of all the guys. He meets Kathy, who Jodie plays, and they fall in love and get married very quickly. And but he's always got one foot out of the covers. You know, he kind of has this way of being able to compartmentalize, and he can leave at any moment. And he doesn't want responsibility, doesn't want anybody to need anything from him. And so as long as that remains, then he can have a good time with everybody and have a lot of love for Johnny and Kathy and everybody in the gang. But as soon as anybody starts needing things from him and putting responsibility on him, he can cut ties and bolt. So that's Benny, and he ends up being pulled between Kathy and Johnny, where Kathy wants Benny to stop riding and get out, and Johnny wants Benny to take over. You never know when you meet your heroes if you're gonna get along or how they're gonna treat you or anything. And Tom makes me laugh harder than almost anyone in this world. My stomach hurts when I'm around him. And he's really kind and fun to be around. And then on top of that, he's been really generous with his sort of showing of his toolkit, where we'll talk about acting and he'll kind of go, you know, this is something that I do. And he'll kind of show me, it's like a magician sharing their tricks with you. And I'm endlessly grateful for that. So he feels like a brother now to me. It's been so great getting to work with her, and she's so professional, and the work that she's done on her voice in this is just, he played me before she'd arrived. She sent an audio recording of her voice, and I was just floored by it, because I've heard Kathy's audio recording many times, and it was spot on. My jaw was on the floor. For me, a lot of that is, actually talking to my family in that voice, you know, and talking to people at a coffee shop, and at first you feel funny, you feel kind of like an imposter. And then with time, then it ends up it ends up just feeling like this is how I talk, and then you're not having to translate it, and then that's one less thing you have to think about when you're on set, because there's everything on set is like trying to distract you. There's a camera there, there's people talking. You got to remember where the lighting is and where your mark is and everything. So as much as you can stack the deck, I find, to not have to think about things and just be able to be alive, that's the goal. Michael Shannon is we were doing the scene the other night where he's talking about how he wanted to be in the military, and we're sitting around the campfire, and it was some of the greatest acting I've ever seen. And to get to watch that over and over and see how he changes things every time. He's newly alive every take. He's improvising little things. He is so incredibly present. He did a take, and I walked up afterward and walked over to Tom, and Tom looked at me and says, "Doesn't get any better than that." And then he kept doing takes, and he kept finding new things, and it was so inspiring. And Mike as well, he's just an incredibly focused actor, which is also really inspiring, because he'll finish a take and then he walks off by himself and he just smokes a cigarette and just stands by himself. And then he comes back and he hits it again, and it's just, I could watch him all day long. You know, I relish every time that he's on set. Jeff is a very, very special and incredible director. And one of his strengths is that he knows the script inside and out. For one, he wrote it, but two, he wrote it with such care and has thought about every angle, so that by the time that we get to set, he has the blueprint. And that's something he told me early on, is I've already seen the film in my mind, so we have that to fall back on. If you want to try things out there and experiment with things, just know we can always go back to the film that I have in my head. And that's such a comforting support system, you know, as an actor, because then you can make mistakes, you can try things, but you always know that he's got you.